Normally as part of a 101 series, I make a video on how to counter a given deck, but in the case of Photons, that seemed pointless, so I decided to move straight to the how to fix section. It's not that hard to counter Photons because they don't do enough in their current state. Karma cut their Galaxion mid setup and they scoop. Book of Moon their Galaxy Eyes, and more often than not their Photon Stream of Destruction is a dead card turn 2. Prevent the OTK in any way, shape, or form and you will most likely out-resource them. Ask them to play through Disruption and pretty often they fall apart. At an earlier point in the series we talked about the XYZ card Excalibur and how in some situations that one card can invalidate the entire deck because it can achieve an OTK better than the actual archetype can. It can deal a clean 4K to get around Battle in Box or Veil, which is really good. The only thing that you lose is the minimal banish potential, but to be honest, this is faster and sometimes better in quite a few situations that I found myself in. Not always, obviously, don't misquote me, but you get what I'm going for. For one card to be competing with an entire deck, it's kind of just like, what else do you do other than OTK? Oh, okay, you banish 3 cards? Cool, maybe, sometimes if you draw your Photon Streams of Destruction, which, let's be honest, doesn't always happen. So like, what do we do here? How do we fix Photons? Well, with what we have access to at the moment, you can't really. I would suggest running 20 cards at all times to avoid inconsistency and just hope to draw into Hey Trunade. If you need to, you can use the skill to get your Galaxy Cyclone and just hope that your opponent only has one piece of back row and hope that you snipe the right card. It looks bleak. I'll keep it $150. The Neo Galaxy Eye support is interesting, you know, but yeah, it's nice to have something, but the deck needs more. There's no protection on its boss monsters. Galaxy Eyes has a quick play effect unlike most antagonists' boss monsters, which is cool and everything, but it's insufficient since you have to make it to the battle phase to use the effect, and most people will karma cut you or get rid of you or Book of Moon you before you make it to that state. The monsters in the archetype, just talking about the main deck, they don't do anything, and that's not normal. They literally do not do anything other than facilitate the summon of Galaxy Eyes. Like what other decks are like that, where they don't help you draw cards other than Vanisher, which is just a +1? Sometimes, and it's not normal for a deck to not do anything but one thing. Don't get me wrong, it's very good for XYZ spam, but the end result of that XYZ spam needs to be better. The boss monsters rely on spell and trap effects rather than their own power, and one without the other isn't really useful, right? Because if you have your boss monsters out but none of the Photon Streams of Destruction, then you will just get dealt with relatively handily, and if you have the Photon Streams of Destruction and didn't get into your boss monster, then you brick. It's also worth noting that Photons invest too many resources into their main plays. I understand why, it's because we have to, but that doesn't mean it's a good thing, right? Like, by the time a quote-unquote good Photon play is finished, your hand is probably empty. And on top of that, it doesn't regain the cards that it spends making its one-shot play. So that's not great, especially because, like we talked about, the bosses don't have protection, so there's 0 sticking power. You invest all those resources, get nothing back, and you can be dealt with by a single karma cut. Quite frankly, you're not really drawing cards at all, except a sometimes +1 with Vanisher, like I said. And since the monsters don't float, there's 0 recovery. Put into perspective, it's clear that there's quite a few weaknesses when it comes to the Photon archetype, but here's some cards that I think could be very useful to the deck and solve one or more of its problems, right? Photons and Galaxy Eye specifically have a lot of TCG support since they were the ace cards of one of the main rivals in Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, so I can't actually cover all of it. I'm going to talk about specific cards to fix specific issues that I think we could actually potentially see in the future. First up are the XYZ monsters, and more specifically the XYZ monsters that I think we could have or should have gotten instead of Neo Galaxy Eyes. First is number 90, Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord. 2 level 8 monsters, so already better. If this card has a Photon card as its material, it cannot be destroyed by card effects, which is the protection that these boss monsters need. Again, it's not perfect because you can still be targeted, but destruction protection is a start. You can only use each of the following effects of number 90 Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord once per turn. When an opponent's monster activates its effect, quick effect, you can attach 1 material from this card and negate that monster's effect, and if the detached material was a Galaxy card, destroy that card. The other effect is during your opponent's turn, quick effect, take 1 Photon or Galaxy card from your deck and either add it to your hand or attach it to this card as material. This is everything that Neo Galaxy Eyes wants to be, but it's better. What you lose in attack, you gain gain in having actual meaningful effects and a degree of ease in actually realistically getting this card on the field. You can detach materials to negate your opponent's effects, but rather than being a board wipe that just negates all the effects on the field like Neo Galaxy Eyes is, this is targeted. It's an effect that you can control, so it's not wasteful in that sense. It's easy to get into, it's not wasteful, you can do it turn by turn, and it can recycle resources once it's been summoned. The additional effect to destroy the monster whose effect you negate only activates if a Galaxy Eyes was detached for the activation of your effect, right? So that in and of itself balances the card even more. You're not just straight up destroying all of your opponent's monsters, but you're negating their effects. You will most likely only have 2 Galaxy Eyes in the deck in the first place, so that just sounds so balanced, so meaningful, actually relevant because you can actually get into the card. So I would love it if we got this. I don't think it's ridiculously powerful. I can genuinely see this coming in the future, so I'm excited for this. Why I also think that it's possible that we might get this card is because we're getting a skill that boosts the attack of Galaxy Eyes and Photon XYZ monsters, and Neo Galaxy Eyes doesn't need that in the slightest, but this would. It would actually be meaningful using that skill with this card. So I genuinely believe we might see this in the future. The next card that Neo Galaxy Eyes wishes it was is number 62 Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon. Now, 2 level 8 monsters once again, so a reasonable summoning cost. If this card battles during damage calculation quick effect, detach 1 material from this card once per battle. This card gains attack equal to the combined ranks of all XYZ monsters currently on the field times 200. So while that might sound insane, it's okay, right? That boost only lasts during that damage calculation only. If this card in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect while it has Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon as an XYZ material, you can special summon this card during your second standby phase after the activation and double its attack. That is the exact kind of floating that we need, the exact kind of recovery and follow-up play that we need, things that you can do after the initial strategy potentially fails, right? That is just, it is mind-blowing to me that this exists and we got Neo Galaxy Eyes instead.
Why are you
right?
me?
I mean, obviously it's Konami, they want to pace things out and everything, they want to stretch it and get as much money as they can, but again, this seems like a relatively reasonable effect, especially because of this next requirement. Any battle damage this card inflicts to your opponent is halved unless it has Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon as an XYZ material. So remember that attack boost that it was going to get potentially? I don't know. It depends on what XYZ cards are on the field. But remember that attack boost? It is literally only relevant if you strategized, played smart, and got Galaxy Eyes as one of the materials of this card. If you wanted to use this card in a different deck such as Blue Eyes, the same thing would apply. Sure, you have this big monster on the field, but you're only doing half the damage, which fits a bit more into the 4,000 life point meta that we're currently in. This one is a bit less likely in my opinion just because of the big numbers it puts on the field, but we got Neo Galaxy Eyes. I don't think anything is too much of a stretch right now. I would love this card. Last is number 107 Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon. 2 level 8 monsters once again. You're seeing a trend here, aren't you? A reasonable summoning cost in a game where we only have 3 monster zones, right? Now, once per battle phase, at the start of your battle phase, you can attach 1 material from this card and all other face-up monsters on the field have their effects negated. Also, their attack and defense become their original attack and defense, right? Now, what does Neo Galaxy Eyes want to do? Negate the effects of all of the monsters on the field. I chose this card because if that's what Konami wants us to be doing, this card does it, but in a more reasonable way. What balances this card as well is that this is only activatable during the battle phase. During the main phase, you can still use your monster effects. You can still activate, for instance, your Madame Vere to negate my effects before I'm able to make it into the battle phase, right? Normally, battle phase effects aren't crazy, but this would be better than what we got. Now, if you did negate your opponent's monster effects during the battle phase, every time they try and activate a card effect, so let's say they try and use their back row to supplement the fact that their monsters aren't working, this card gains 1000 attack until the end of the battle phase. It can also make a second attack during each battle phase on that turn. That, to me, again, sounds pretty damn good. 3000 attack, potentially boosting it up to 4k, or just having that power in a balanced way, no floating potential, unlike the other cards that we talked about, so it's actually my least favorite of the 3, but still, this is just a more meaningful Neo Galaxy Eyes. This is everything that that card wanted to be, but better. You get the multiple attacks, you get the effect negation, it's just I'm sad now. Let's move away from replacements for Neo Galaxy Eyes and talk about just supporting the archetype in general. Now, there is one more XYZ card to talk about, and in my humble opinion, this one card, and I genuinely mean this one card, fixes everything that is wrong with Photons today. That might be a little bit of an over-exaggeration, but hear me out. Starliege Photon Blast Dragon. It takes 2 level 4 monsters, just like Galaxion. If this card is XYZ summon, you can special summon 1 Photon monster from your hand. Now, already, you would probably want to go into this instead of Galaxion if you have Galaxy Eyes in your hand, but moving on, while this XYZ summon monster is on the field, your opponent cannot target monsters you control that have 2,000 or more attack with card effects. They also cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. This is the protection that I want. This is the defense that we need. Once per turn during your opponent's turn, as a quick effect, you can detach 1 material from this card, then target one of your Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragons that is banished or in your graveyard and special summon it. So there's the recovery to go with the protection, my G. There's the getting your cards back, recycling resources. This card does it. It protects you. It recovers. I want to hug you. I want to hug this card. We need this card. If you take anything away from this, take this. We need this card, my G. Imagine you special summon a Photon Advancer and then special summon a Photon Vanisher from your hand. Vanisher will add Galaxy Eyes to your hand. Then you make this card and special summon Galaxy Eyes from your hand. You have an untargetable Galaxy Eyes. This card, you're both indestructible. Hey, hi, it's me, Future Sol here. This card isn't indestructible and untargetable. I got excited and I'm bad at reading. It only has 1,800 attack, which means it's not protected by its own effect, which just makes it more balanced. It just makes it better and more likely that we might get this card. So, there you go. And if you have any Photon Streams of Destruction, then go for it. Use them. In fact, return the regular main deck monsters back into the deck using the Galaxy Photon skill to get your banishing cards and just go for it. Have at it. Have a field day. This is probably one of the strongest pieces of support that we could get. Because of how strong this card is, I don't know, but I can dream, okay? Let's move on to some of the other cards that we could get probably sooner than we would get a card like this. On the subject of recovery, you have Galaxy Cleric, which has the effect whereby if you have 5 Photon and or Galaxy cards, not monsters, cards with different names in your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck and draw 2 cards. So this is the recovery and the recycling effects while also giving you some draw power. I would really like this. It's a level 4 monster, and it has the additional effect that if this card is in your hand, you can target a Photon or Galaxy XYZ monster you control and attach this card to it as a material. So that's just more resources, this card is all about resource management and resource recycling, so I really like it. It's not too strong in my opinion because it can only recycle the resources if you have 5 of those different cards in your graveyard, which means that you have to have survived the duel at least a little bit. You have to play the game before you can get all of that back, kind of like what Teller Knights have with Sirius. You also have Galaxy Eyes Cloudragon. You can tribute this card, special summon 1 Galaxy Eyes monster from your hand or graveyard, except, Galaxy Eyes Cloudragon. Then if this card is in the graveyard, you can target 1 Galaxy XYZ monster you control and attach this card to it as an XYZ material. You can only do all of this once per turn, obviously. Hold on, that's another mistake. That's another mistake from this dummy. This card, the effect is only usable once per duel. That is so much more balanced. Hey, yo, like I already thought we could get this relatively easily. I just think that even more now. So yeah, that's, again, just recovery. Things have gone wrong. Tribute this card, get a Galaxy Eyes out, and then assume that you decide to make an XYZ monster. That's just an extra material as well, which is very good for resource recycling and management. Next, on the subject of consistency and trying not to break, you have Ace Light, which if you control no monster, special summon 1 level 4 or lower Photon or Galaxy monster from your deck. You can only activate 1 per turn. You cannot normal summon or set during the turn you activate this card, which is fine because Photons mostly, all of them can special summon themselves except for Photon Lizard that we currently have in the game. This is just a good searcher. It might make for more consistent builds that don't have to rely on the Galaxy Photon skill. You also have Galaxy Trance, a bit stronger, pay 2,000 life points, so a bit of a cost. Target one Photon monster in your graveyard, special summon both it and one Galaxy monster from your deck with the same level, both in defense position. Now, everything else that this card says is basically irrelevant. Their effects are negated, blah, 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 blah. This helps with rank 8 XYZ summoning. It makes it a bit more viable, a bit more feasible, but if you have less than 2,000 life points, you cannot do it. If you haven't played the game and gotten a monster into the graveyard, you cannot do it. I really, really like this, and you cannot normal or special summon monsters during the turn you activate this card except Photon and Galaxy monsters, so it locks it into its own archetype. Great. The last thing I wanted to talk about is just alternative ways to get big monsters on the field rather than having to do all the mental gymnastics. Okay, how do we get Galaxy Eyes out in order to make rank 8 XYZs? Do we use Galaxion? Oh, but you can't overlay with Galaxion. No, let's just talk about this. Galaxy Brave, if this card is in your hand, reveal one Photon monster in your hand and special summon this card. If you do, its level becomes the level of that Photon monster. This is really good because you can make rank 4s and rank 8s using this card, and if this card is normal or special summon, target one Galaxy monster in your graveyard and it copies its attack and defense. So that, assume, again, this think about the recovery with this, right? Because let's say Galaxy Eyes is in the graveyard, you can't get it out. Well, boom, you have the stats of Galaxy Eyes back on the field. You can still make plays, so it helps with getting into your XYZ summons in a sensible way and with recovery. You also have Galaxy Knight, which says if you control a Photon or Galaxy monster, you can normal summon this card without tributing. Quite frankly, we don't normal summon cards in the deck, so you're probably going to have your normal summon still available to you. If you summon this card in this way, target one Galaxy Eyes in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position. So you have a Galaxy Eyes on the field to summon this card with, and then you summon one from the graveyard. Boom, level 8 XYZ summon. And the crazy thing is, would you believe it? You have to have a monster in the graveyard. You have to have at least played the game to an extent to be able to do this. It's not just a turn one kill kind of thing. So this card and Galaxy Brave, I think, are very balanced. I genuinely believe we could get these cards in the future. That's all from me, folks. Please let me know what you think of the cards that I've suggested and what kind of cards you would like to see in the Photon archetype. Are you enjoying the deck as is? Do you think it doesn't need buffs? If so, get help. No, I'm joking. I'm joking, but thank you so much for watching. I very much appreciate it. We're almost at the end of the Photon 101 series, so if you'd like to see the rest, please consider subscribing. It really does help me out. I suck at this. Bye.